Clipse dropped another album, and they had a quote that I need to ask you on because you and I go way back in hip hop. Malice had a quote. They did an interview with Complex Magazine, and he said this. He said, I think hip hop has kind of jinxed itself into thinking there's such a thing as too old and that it should never be accepted. Either you got talent or you don't. You could be old or you could be young. Agreed?
1,000,000%. I think, you know, one of the things about hip hop culture, the people got to remember, I mean, I think we just celebrated 50 years last year, if I'm not mistaken. And it's only been around for 50 years. So there's no person who's survived. I mean, now we're starting to see our icons get into their 60s, right? Some maybe even into their 70s. But back then, people would say, "Oh, it's not cool to be a rapper at a certain age." But I think it's no different than rock and roll. I think it's no different than country music. I think that we have come to a point where it's been generational. So the sound has definitely transitioned from generation to generation, even from its origins in the 70s to where it was in the 80s and the 90s, and then obviously the early 2000s, and then where it's at now. So, I mean, I think there's been a multitude of generations that have enjoyed hip hop. But one thing that I realize is that you could throw on a Ludacris record from 2003, and that record will be just as iconic as it was then to someone of today's generation.
For
So
sure.
I think that's where hip hop. That's why hip hop has basically been such a huge genre of music for so many years, and it's just starting to get its flowers. So yeah, there's no age limit on it. Um, here's my caveat to that though, right? Not to stir the pot, I would say. The one thing that I appreciate though, when we start to see some of the older musicians doing music, is that they're doing it based on where they are in life right now and
Yep.
not where they were in life back then, right? And I think that I find beauty in that. That doesn't mean that you can't still be talking about parties at the age of 60, but if you 60 and you a grandpa and that's where your life is now, I want to hear that in the music too, because I feel like that gives me a certain understanding of where my life will go, when I get to that age. So yeah, I mean, no, I'm there's no age limit on this at all. If you want to, you could do this forever.
I agree with you 100%. You've, like we talked about, we've both been in the game for a minute. If I had to ask you, I got two older kids. If I said Mims wants you to listen to this album to understand hip hop, what album would you have them listen to?
In total, if I'm trying to get an introduction from the younger audience, I'm gonna go old Kanye. I'm gonna say College Dropout.
Hey,
I'm not saying that's my ultimate top album of all time, but I think as a listener, if you're just getting introduced to hip hop, that music kind of has an appeal to almost everybody. So I think I would say College Dropout.